Thanks for having me. Just a little bit about myself. I've been coaching for around 22 years. I'm an individual skill development specialist. Spent 10 years working in Premier League Academy football, mainly at Chelsea and Tottenham. And I've also been an individual coach for about 20 years. Also spent some time at Arsenal. Work one-to-one with a lot of pro players. Here are some of my clients: Noni Madueke, Chelsea; Flo Balogun, Monaco; Rico Henry, Brentford; Samuel Iling, Juventus; Max Aarons at Bournemouth; and Rue Waters at Arsenal, just to name a few. Also, what I do, the last several years, been working as a consultant to many clubs all around the world. Here are some of the clubs I'm working for, mainly supporting them with their individual program through the MyPersonalFootballCoach app, and also just in terms of just a consultancy basis to help to refine what they do individually with their players. Arsenal obviously been one of the big clubs I've helped support there and really focus on their individual program and help them with their individual ball work, and particularly their 1v1 domination work, and trying to get that individual work out with the players. And also Wolverhampton Wanderers, another club I've been lucky to support and work around with. So I'm going to talk about a little bit today about individual tactics, developing the game changer. So a big part of my work and my philosophy is that individual position-specific work. I'm a big believer in that, working away from the game. It's not just about working hard, it's about working smart as well. And you can actually, it's a lot of times about quality over quantity, and it's about really what you're practicing. So I'm going to show you 3 examples of some of the stuff I've done with some players in the past at the highest level. I think it's great to talk about things what you do with players at the highest level, because as you see, if you can do it in the Premier League, then, you can do it anywhere. And imagine what we can do with players, you guys, whether you're playing grassroots or you're playing college or pro, whatever, you can show the sort of gains you can get. One of my clients, Max Aarons, I started coaching Max when he was 14. Really interesting story. He dropped out of academy football at Luton as 14 and was without a club for 2 years. So from 14 to 16, without a club, just working with me. We're training 2 or 3 times a week, just individual ball work. And then he signed a scholarship at Norwich, and with 3 years, he's in the Premier League and won the England under-21s Euros with England last year, and one of the best young attacking fullbacks in the country. What I mean by modern day fullback really is about your 1v1 ability, not just defending, but attacking. And particularly as in the modern game, what you do is often judged in the final third of the pitch rather than your own third. So obviously really good 1v1 ability against defenders, core skills and movements, lots of end product in terms of forward passes, crossing, and obviously the finishing and defending work. So Max's example I'm going to show you because a couple of principles we talk about. Albert Capellas is a good friend of mine and former head of the Barcelona Academy, talked about Superman theory. And the idea is that, they want to create players like a Superman on the ball. And they're very much talking about for example, their rondo work and their positional play. So really, really tight spaces, really fast, really quick play. And the players are like Superman. And it made me think of actually, that's really what my philosophy is about. But obviously in terms of the individual ball work, we really stress the player, really put the player's technique and body under stress with the ball, because we want them to be like Superman on the ball. So really high intensity, dynamic ball mastery, like I call it, because it's not about just developing the technique for the modern game. It's about developing the body for the modern game. And the idea is obviously, you're so good on the ball, you're quick, you're so sharp. When you get into those game type environments, everything else becomes easy. And we see that. So here's a real great Max's featured on a podcast. This is a few years ago now, and Iling Jnr, ex-player, and is on the Adidas podcast. He starts to talk about some of the work we did, and his dad obviously talks. I always speak to his dad regularly as well, and obviously, of course, of Max. But he's obviously speaks very highly of my work. And he says how it transformed Max overnight in terms of not only about his ability on the ball, but the way he moved with the ball, becoming more explosive and more dynamic. And listen, and it's the best coming from the horse's mouth. Directly.
Yeah, so I kind of looked at my game and I looked at what I could improve on, and he said to me, he watched a few of my clips and stuff like that, and said, I think you need to become better in this area. You need to become more like dynamic and sharper with the ball, type of thing, and we can work on different exercises to get you like that. So then I started training with him, and I remember that age, because now my pace and my speed is one of my main attributes. But back then, when I was 14, I was kind of a late developer, and I I didn't really have that like explosiveness and stuff, which I worked on with him, and it just allowed me to like work on what I wasn't that good at that time. So then it sharpened me up massively, and like it was all stuff to do with the ball. So it just brought my whole game on massively, just working one-to-one with him. Because obviously sometimes in training, you know, you're having to wait to have another go in a drill or something like that, or a small group exercises. But I think that one-to-one was the best thing.
So yeah, look, really great words from Max. I mean, but then obviously the next question is, what does that look like? So Rue Waters, actually another interesting story. Again, he dropped out. His dad took him out of Tottenham Hotspur as an under 14 because he wasn't happy with how he was progressing. I'd coached Ruel as an under 12 before he got signed. And again, a very dynamic, explosive player. Dad said to me, look, he's gone backwards. And I did a session with him. And again, I noticed that he wasn't moving very well, wasn't very dynamic with the ball. And actually enough, again, like, you know, we spent, again, about a year and a half, 2 years working. And again, then we got him signed at Arsenal. Actually, I got the head of recruitment to come down to one of my sessions, Lee Heron, who's a friend of mine, said, you've got to look at this kid. And again, so he went, you know, he had that transformative work to make him more explosive and dynamic with the ball. And it's important now we talk about what that looks like, because like I said, it's about training smartly. And it's about, you know, you can do all stuff all day long, but if you're not training for the game, that's, you know, there's no point in training. So it's about explosive dynamic movements, all game-related movements, all related around the 1v1 in football, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in later. But like these sort of skill combination works, and also game-specific drills like we'll see a bit later. But, you know, these sort of skill combination works, which are the moves that are taken directly from the game, in terms of 1v1 domination, the 1v1 duel, which I believe is the basis for all football. This is where, you know, all the top players, you know, have real success. And to rework on these movements, like I say, not about just developing the technique, but developing the speed, explosive movement, and dynamic movement and agility on the ball needed at the highest level. So here's a little example of the work, sort of like some of the work we do in the sessions. I would do in my sessions. Back, slow, good, Maradona, good. Great, there, slow, drive at speed, in and out, do it now. 1, 2, try in the box, target. So again, explosive movement with the ball. I suggest, you know, you guys, you're doing this, do this 4 times a day, 4 times strong foot, 4 times on your weak foot. You will notice the difference in no time, the way how you move around the pitch within the game. So this is a very small part of the session. And I also have a lot of, you know, banter with coaches and stuff like this about, you know, you won't see ladders, you know, and hoops and all these sorts of, you know, hurdles and stuff being used at the elite level at the top in the modern game. All right. Because it's much more effective, I believe, to doing all that stuff with the ball. You can do it with the ball, and it's much more functional and game specific. You know, and for me, like any session, any aspiring player who wants to play at the highest level, you know, any sessions, any time spent without the ball is wasted time in a session, in my opinion. You could be doing that stuff with the ball, and this is dynamic with the ball. Now, it's only a small part of the session. And the rest is like we're going to go on to it is the game-specific stuff. And what does that mean by the game-specific stuff? Now we're going to come on to this. Obviously, we talk about, you know, those position-specific training. And like I said, you know, what I do, you know, over my 20 years, I've broken down what I've seen in the game, the patterns I've seen at the game at the highest level. And it's a bit like the Matrix. You know, you see Neo in the Matrix. I can see the patterns in every game now. So what you do is, look, some players have these assets naturally. Some players can beat players and dribble past player and do that. But some players need support. And this is where the coaching comes in. And this is where you've got to make your training position specific as possible, and obviously, you know, and train smart and train effectively, but obviously, you know, train, you know, don't waste time in your sessions. So for example, we have in and out movements. So these obviously, you see these commonly in the wide areas of the pitch where your fullbacks or your wingers, your wide forwards, or your mostly attacking players. So we have the 3 principles of in and out movements, which are engaging the defender, unbalancing the defender, and driving to space created. So what does that mean? So, you know, we used to talk about the Brazilian Ronaldo when I worked at Tottenham many years ago, you know, in these 1v wide moments in wide areas. Okay, so let's break it down. So, you know, in theory, like, you know, I'm the blue player, I'm the attacking player. We have the red player. The red player is the defender. All right. So I say to players when I'm coaching them, like, or even coaches when I'm working in Coach Ed, like, what is that red player's priority? What's he been coached to do? He's been coached to send you outside, slow you down, and dictate play. That's what he always talk about when they're coaching defenders, dictate play. So what I say to the attackers, you've got to turn it on its head. You can't let that defender dictate play. You've got to dictate play. So what does that mean? Is that, so instead of like, you see the line here, the red, instead of like driving down the line, which most will players into space, we always drive inside. Why do we drive inside? We drive inside to open up the inside of the pitch first, but also to try and engage that defender, all right, to take away the control from their habit, and then drive inside so then I can unbalance them. And it's almost like a game of brinksmanship. You know, the red player wants me to go down the line. Well, I want to go down the line as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside, unbalance you, then go into that space and take you out the game. So that's the difference here. It's about isolating the defenders and taking them out the game. That's what the best players do. So we're not going to let that defender slow me down, usher me outside. And there's a saying in football as well about the sideline is like the line's the best defender. So you're almost like playing a 2v1 there. So I'm driving away from the other defender right into the inside of the pitch, and to do it. And it's interesting, we talked about Max there. You watch Max there, he does it all the time now. He works so much in it because once you drive inside, it opens up the inside of the pitch. You can go inside as well, but it's so easy to go outside there on the other side. So again, just to reiterate, that in and out movements, engage the defender, drive into unbalance, explode into space, all right? And the key thing as well, you know, there's lots more detail this in my position-specific courses, in particular the wide forward play courses, when we go on about, you know, the safe side and the transition and, you know, the two or three phases of this. You know, when you recognize these patterns, you see it all the time, but also it's like, it's very difficult to defend. That's why I see it all the time there once you time it right. So you do it at speed. So there's Max again, and Max, we're going to show you a little drill I've been doing Max. This is when Max was playing at Norwich. You'll see another little pattern, which is the turning away from pressure, like, you know, cutting away safe side. So this is a little drill that, you know, we did, like lots of, you know, Cruyff turns and cuts and step overs and then in and out movement, bang. So lots of, like, you know, bit of passive pressure, driving inside, little fake, get outside there. Both sides always work both feet. But again, this is like, we did this for years, these movements for years. Like the basic principles are being able to cut away, obviously, then that isolate that defender 1v1, come inside there and beat it. All right. So again, we talk about training smart, training specifically for your position. Max, obviously, attacking fullback. You know, you can do this with wide forward players, forward plays, whatever. Okay, lots of repetition there. So then now, obviously, Matt, we're moving into the game. This is an England under-21 game a couple of years ago. Watch the pattern again. You see both of those movements in this one little clip. Breaking, cutting away from pressure, turning around, beating it, and then breaking the line, and then 1v1 against the defender, in and out to break the line again. So let's have a look. It's a little movement here. Good. Little watch this safe side turn, outside cut, bang, just like we did in that thing. And then watch isolate, drive straight in, fake in, get out, boom. Here we go. Find the cross end product, goal. All right. So again, look, from the training pitch to the game, England under 21 game, Reiss Nelson there, Iling Jnr, Conor Gallagher, a few of the other boys. This is it. Look, drive, exactly same pattern, fake in, fake out, boom. Very difficult to defend. You do it with speed, you do it with timing. So just goes to show you a little bit of that, you know, like I say, from the training pitch to the thing. This is what, if I'm like a young forward player, young fullback or forward player, this is the stuff I'm practicing every day. My way to cut and explode and change direction with the ball. And obviously then those little 1v1 forward movements to engage and isolate defenders. Samuel Iling Jnr. First met Samuel and I worked at Chelsea as an academy coach. Obviously then he moved to Juventus. Last few years we've been doing a lot of work together. Again, in and out movements. I always said to Samuel, I was like, look, technically unbelievable, physically unbelievable, the perfect package. Great football game intelligence as well. Just talking about him about being a bit more direct sometimes. Again, about just, you know, you don't need so many touches. Isolate the defender, take him out of the game. So again, here, working, driving in and out movements, little movements in to fake in, get out onto his left foot. Lots of repetition, lots of quality movements, different variations to get in, get out. Always with an end product. Again, the turn going out here. It's London rain, obviously, because it rains all the time here. Okay, well, so I'm going to, Gary can rewind it anyway, but point is, like saying, it's very difficult to defend those in and out movements. Noni Madueke, Chelsea player, came to me again about 3 or 4 years now, again, working this when he was at PSV. And when Noni, I said to him, like, same, was like, you know, Noni's, like, I don't know, people remember Ari and Robin, loves cutting in on the inside. So super strength is going in and in, so rather than in and out. But I said to him, like, we've got to work on the in and out as well, because what will happen, you know, undoubtedly in a game is that people, because he knows they want to come inside, they'll show him the outside more. So I just seen this little clip from this thing when he was at PSV. We had a real intense 3 or 4 weeks training. We worked inside, so driving into the mannequin and then cutting inside with your left foot shot, but then also driving into the mannequin and cutting onto his right foot. And obviously what you see clips here is you see us working together. And 2 weeks later in the Cruyff Club, which is the equivalent of the Charity Shield here, he scores 2 goals against Ajax. Still puts it down to one of his best performances. He scores 1 goal cutting in on his left and 1 goal going in and out onto his right foot. So see if you can see it here. So then obviously he moved to Chelsea. Listen, I've got to say as well, all these guys were top players and will be top players before they ever met me. And it's about, like I say, as a coach, it's about tweaking and supporting and challenging. And that's why I say there, that clip where it said practice makes permanence, that's really pertinent as well as making it permanent. It's really pertinent because, like I say, it's really easy to train, the wrong things. You've got to try and train the right things and it will accelerate your learning. Do you know what I mean? That's what it's about. So be specific. So Rico Henry, again, one of the best left backs in the country at the moment. Brentford came to me a couple of seasons ago. Again, it's aspirations to play for England. Been unlucky, been injured this year. In and out movements, trying to utilize his speed and agility on the ball to try and break that line. Look how dynamic he is. But so really looking about in terms of what are the details. You're talking about transference of balance, keeping your head forward. You should be getting quicker rather than getting slower. Momentum and key, all right? So did that, lots of work like that. And then this next clip is from the game against Man City. I think it was December. So from the summer to December, just before the World Cup last year. This is him against Man City, against Cancelo, one of the best fullbacks in world football. And I think that, Gary, is me.
One of the things I really like, and one of the things I believe gets lost in one-to-one work is you talk about outputs always with an end product. So all those moves, you see a lot, I know on social media, I know this will drive you mad, but you see a lot of people just doing 200 toe taps in a 5x5 square. But for you, it seems to be there's a reason for doing that there. Can you talk a little bit about how that is changed by position?
Yeah, I think first of all, you make a great point because especially the more experienced I've become, the more game specific I've realized the more important, especially with the recent, the discussion about, game relation, stuff like that. All my training is very game related. Everything's done for a purpose, for a reason. With the very youngest players, like I say, you might do those toe tap stuff like that. But for example, all my ball mastery is linked directly to the 1v1 in the game. So all the movements in terms of you're cutting the ball, you're changing direction, you're Ronaldo, stuff like that. So the movement work is like developing movement, and that's probably the only thing that doesn't look like a game specific action. Then again, it's about every other thing after you do your initial movement work. It's about, it's got to be game specific. And this game, so for example, today I was working with a young player who plays in the championship, like a number 10. So it's about, they're making all the practice around what's he going to anticipate in the game. So we're working on getting on the half turn, being able to receive it, turn, get forward, shots, pass, those sorts of things. All right. So it's really important to first, I say to everybody, right, look, what position do you play? Okay, and then can you break down those game-specific moments, those game-changing moments, most specifically? What's going to make you stand out? For example, if you're a wide player, it's going to be able to get on the ball and get some end product into the box with a shot, a pass, or a cross. And the challenge is, you're playing against good players. How do I get on the ball and then try and play forward? That's the challenge, isn't it? And that's all about the 1v1. So whether I'm playing with a bit of back to pressure, am I using a bit of disguise so I can turn, or am I playing with a defender in front of me? Also got pressure on the side. So understanding that, and then you've got to try and say, right, then how am I going to train to do that? So like I say, it looks different for all positions. So, a centre back, working with centre backs, it'd be much more, in terms of aerial control, bringing it down, turning away from pressure, playing forward, breaking lines, forward passes, forward movements. The modern day centre back is, you've got to be, deep line playmaker almost. You know what I mean? You've got to be able to step into the midfield these days. So those are the sorts of attributes you want to be wearing, as well as, you still got to head it, and kick it and stuff like that. But the game's more demanding these days. So that's what I mean. Like, break it down, as a modern day fullback, you're inverted fullback these days. You're like an inverted midfielder. You know what I mean? So there's different for players. And I say for like people, especially for younger players, you give them all those things, all those assets in terms of all the, the 1v1 qualities, basically.
A lot of clubs today, quite rightly, are looking at tiering the development process and getting that ball mastery in at a young age, and then probably tactics come a little bit later. You've done not only the consultation work you've done, but also with your podcast and your work, research, even like the places you've been, what you've seen. What are some keys to getting that ball mastery at the younger level? And then again, is it tiering or structure in the more the tactical sides? That how are some of the most successful clubs doing that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you look at that. For example, went to Dynamo Zagreb. That was really interesting. What I noticed about them, it was not necessarily the practices, it was more about the culture. And I tell this story all the time, is that, I watched the under 8s all the way up to the B team or the reserve team or, 21s, wherever it was. And every age group I saw, every single age group had an element of a 1v1 drill in there. Do you know what I mean? And it was all different. Everyone was different, but there was a 1v1 practice. Every team did a 1v1 practice, even up to the B team. So you're talking about the under 8s all the way to the B team. And that's what the difference is. That's about culture, so it's not necessarily, you look at the drills, they're not doing anything, unbelievable, but it's just that in terms of that, what the DNA of the club, and that's why they develop these sorts of great technical players, because that's what is required. So that's what the best academies do. I still think in England we still have far too much focus on the tactical and the team elements. We're obsessed with that. We can't seem to get away from it. It's not helped with the coach education program at the moment. Very little technical or individual work around that. It's all deep, because we just don't understand it well enough here in this country. But definitely Nanderlecht and PSV and all these countries here, much more, in those sorts of European countries, they're much more aligned to that anyway, maybe just culturally. But to answer your question, I mean, listen, the clubs are doing effective. And listen, I mean, Arsenal still have a really, really strong ball mastery individual work at the foundation phase. Obviously, it doesn't filter as much through to the older age groups as, someone me probably like to see. But I mean, listen, they're still doing some great work there.
Arsenal have two assistant coaches. Is this right? One is ball mastery and the other helps out more with the structure. And then the head coach is more overseeing the balance of both. Yeah,
so that's really, so they started that a few years ago. And so basically they have a head coach, and then they'll have like a technical specialist. And then they'll have like a more of a game insight coach, they call it, sort of thing. So really interesting project, really good, a club, most, club lucky to have their resources. The idea that, that's good because you've got different eyes looking for different things. So really innovative way of doing things. Yeah.
Yes. What is that technical expert? What does that look like? Like, how can coaches become, I guess, a little bit more technical focused or a little bit more better in spotting what you're seeing or you're talking about there?
Yeah, I think it's different. I think every coach has their strength, isn't it? And from very young age, I talk about, even as a young person watching football, I remember watching the Ajax teams. They were obsessed with Ajax and, the Bergkamps and Seedorfs and, Clive, all those sorts of things. So I always had that individual eye for it. I mean, that's what attracted me to it. So obviously, I found my niche quite quickly, but I mean, that's the way also I learned to coach. That's the way my vision of the game was. So I think every coach has different strengths. I think, some coaches are really good, like, in terms of talk about Damachichi, I was talking about him earlier to a friend of mine, one of the best in terms of the game related sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So when I was, he was one of the guys who brought me into Arsenal to help him with the individual stuff, because he knew that was my strength and his strength was the other one. So it's good having, different eyes on those different things. So it's difficult. So what I'd say to coaches, listen, it's difficult as well to upskill yourself, because you're not going to find this sort of stuff in your English or American coach education programs. They've gone so far the constraint-based coaching way. Is there's a big information gap. But listen, there's, I still managed to do it, and there was a lot of people watching the game and learning from people. I learned from people like Tim Bradbury, US soccer coach, educator, and then obviously Ricardo Muniz, I worked with at Tottenham, and then obviously Danny Buck and Chris Ramsey, and these real sort of leaders in the field. But yeah, I mean, you just got to upskill yourself. And lucky, this is a lot different than it was like 20 years ago when, I started that, you've got the internet, you've got YouTube and, stuff, people, even the stuff I'm putting out, going to these clubs and stuff. There's so much information out there, you're lucky you can upskill yourself now.
First last couple from a player's perspective, I can see why this needs to be an area of focus, because even with society changing from, well, when you and I grew up, there was more street football. You could play for 10 hours a day. That's gone in society. But also now, you've mentioned there about it's shifted so far now in the collective that you go and watch a training session today, and you mentioned about Zagreb. It's almost the opposite of a lot of other, because of the coach education and periodization. It's a lot of it's collective based. So players aren't getting those individual bits that they need in the session. I guess when should, the question always is when do they start implementing this here and doing some homework or your program, or when does that come in?
Well, I was saying to everyone, the earlier you start, the better, really. If you're working, if you have the 7s and 8s and young players, and you work on those movements, then, it's a lot easier to do that earlier than it is to start later on. You don't have, if you because we always talk about, you're Western European and, North American players being quite wooden, quite straight, not having that flexibility. If you do lots of ball muscle work, you improve your agility and your movement and that sort of stuff. So to answer your question, yeah, early the better. And this is supplementary, in American is that word, supplementary training. That's what you love to call it, right? So, I say to everybody, it's about, the consistency is key. If you're doing 5 or 10 minutes a day, you will notice that difference of that ball work. We say ideally try and aim for 20 minutes a day, but even 5 or 10 minutes, that quality, even like that little combination work I did, I say to players, do that 4 times a day on each foot. You will notice the difference within a matter of weeks in terms of when you're playing the game. So it's about consistency, training, quality over quantity sometimes, and obviously training specifically as well and correctly, and understanding what you're doing, and then why is it linked to the game? Is that going to make me better, more productive in the game? I think that's really important.
That's really interesting. 20 minutes. I had a colleague a couple of days ago tell me that he had done an hour and a half session for individuals.
No, listen, no, I still do 1 hour sessions, but if I'm doing with players, I do it once, most players will see me once a week, that's to top it up. But what I'm saying about, even if you're doing that and you only come to see me, that's not enough. So I say to players, you still got if you're an academy player here, you're training, do 3 sessions a week, 3 or 4 sessions a week. All right. And then maybe see me for 1 hour a week, but still those other days, doing an extra 5 or 10 minutes, just individual ball work. Because as we know, most 99% of sessions are just team based. And as Max even said there, the higher you get, to the top of end as well, you're not even getting that much ball contact time. That's the irony of all these guys. That's why these pros come and see me. The irony is that, they're paid, on these big wages, they're all celebrated, but, because they can do these wonderful things in the games, these individual moments, but they never get a chance to practice them in the training. They're just expected to just, to be able to supply them on demand. Everything's in boxes, everything's team related about, lots of, tempo, about shape. But, when do they get the chance to practice these explosive, game-changing 1v1 moments? So that's why they come to see me. And that's why then, especially if you're trying to work on those, you need to do that a little bit every day. That's going to help you be more productive, help you be more consistent. So that's what it looks like. Generally my sessions are an hour. It depends on work and pro. You don't really need to do much more than that, in my opinion. But I still say, you can still do a bit when you go away as well. You're not going to clock off, come in 1 hour a week and expect to be a top footballer.
Okay, brilliant. Last 2, from a player standpoint, I'm 15 years of age. I want to get to the next level. At summer, I've got some time. I'm all about the work. I just need some more direction. How can I get it from your resources? Yeah,
so it's the MyPersonalFootballCoach app. So it's available to download. Download for free. And there's lots of resources on. You can use it for free. And then we have the specific training programs as well. So, for example, we have position-specific programs if you're a midfielder, forward player or a striker. We have like 24-day technical transformation challenges. So you can transform your technique in 24 days, or 24 days worth of challenges. It's 3-part sessions. There's lots of other stuff on there. There's a virtual academy now as well. So every month we have fresh content from myself and also some of the top practitioners in world football, world soccer. So for example, we got a scout from Chelsea who tells you, tips how to get scouted, physical coach from Southampton, how to improve your physical asset, stuff to do at home, tactical challenges from a colleague of mine who used to work at Tottenham Hotspur for many years, and also Steve Salas, who's one of the world leaders in mindset development. He's doing stuff. He works for English and Scottish FA. He's doing stuff on about mindset development, obviously a part of the game which is really hasn't really been given that much focus, that much attention. And this is a virtual academy, and obviously I do some technical stuff in there as well, and there's lots of other practitioners. So that's another thing as well. It's only $9.99 a month. It's about, $15, not even that a month. You get, all this content. So that what I suggest is that there's, like I say, it's like the difference. I don't say, my personal coach is unique because obviously my background, working 20 years in the game, and obviously it's used by clubs like Arsenal, Wolves, some of the best academies in the country. So, it's proven at the highest level.
And then from a director standpoint, so let's say, again, I'm working on either side, on the ball mastery side of the junior development, on under 10s, or hey, listen, I think this is an area that we're in the deficit in, a little bit higher up. How can a director or a club look at that program as well? What's the options there?
Yeah, so we have a club partnership package, which basically means all your players get access to the app. Technical training programs. There's lots of different layers. There's a free version, and there's includes the more sort of technical programs, the specific programs. But what's good about that is actually what you do is branded. It's white labeled, so you get your logo on it. But also you get to set the players challenges, so they get a ping to their app. All the videos on the app, new videos every week. But also you can check the data in terms of the who's been using it, how long they've been using it. That's really important. But also tied into that, we have coach education platform as well, the Coach's Pass, which is hundreds of drills and techniques and stuff like that. So it's about upskilling the players, but also the coaches as well. Really important. So, you get the players and the coaches to buy in, and, there's lots of other things on the app as well. Like, players can upload videos on it, share it within the club. So only access within the club specifically as well. They can log their hours, and they can, there's lots of many things with it. So yes, like I said, it's called the team package. They can email me at saul@mypersonalfootballcoach.com for more info. But yeah, and also this, it's really reasonable as well.
Yeah. Your pricing is insane. It's so good. And I went on there as well a few weeks ago, and highly recommend if any coaches want to reach out to me in regards to it and what I think. It's fantastic. It's an absolute steal.
And also, Gary, just to mention, you talked about upskilling yourself earlier. Also, I've got like the My Personal Football Coach Level 1 and Level 2 coaching courses, e-learning courses, which are specifically ball mastery, 1v1 and small-sided games. So if you want to learn more about technical training, what you see at some of the top academies in world football, they're also available.
Brilliant. So first class. We'll put your information to everyone. Thank you so much.
Perfect, man.
Fantastic. Top class.